Okay, so today I'm going to talk really quickly about my PvP build. I call it Reckless Fire. I'm going to talk about why I picked the things I did, why I paired these certain talents, combos, gear sets, things like that with the gun I'm using, the potential it has, the reason behind all of it, and how effective it is in a PvP environment. This is specifically a PvP build. I got a lot of requests for that. I've been doing a lot of PvE content lately just because, the DLC dropped and the underground content is all PvE and getting the new gear sets and things like that. But now I'm finally going back to the PvP meta, trying to shake things up and put my own perspective into the metagame with the builds that I create, and hopefully that is the case here. So to start right in, this build features the Reckless chest piece. I just recently did a review on how good I think the Reckless chest piece is. I think it's a very effective tool for increasing damage, and post-patch it's very effective. So this is my chest piece, very high firearms, has the Reckless talent, exotic damage resilience to help me survive sticky bombs specifically, and also flamethrowers and grenadiers in the dark zone. Has a very high armor roll. That's very important on all your gear pieces if you're going to try and achieve the armor cap without using mods to do so. Has ammo capacity. I like that quite a bit. And then turret health. I would much prefer turret health to be first aid self-heal specifically. First aid self-heal on a high damage, solo DPS build is going to be something you really want rather than these other skill attributes. But, I didn't get lucky with that one there. The one prototype stamina mod, one advanced stamina mod, both of them having a large amount of stamina and critical hit chance. Again, this is going to help my assault rifle to function like an SMG. It's going to help me play with a familiar playstyle from pre-patch with just a different gun type, and it's going to boost my overall damage output. Okay, so as you can see, my meter stats are 324 primary DPS, 400,000 toughness, and 15,000 skill power. I'm sure some of you guys with min-max builds out there have much better stats than this, but this functions very well for me and is very heavy on the firearms DPS side of things, while not sacrificing too much in the way of toughness. So moving on, that's the one non-gear set piece I'm running, Reckless, right there. I have 3-piece Firecrest. Now, a lot of people might say that these Firecrest pieces are going to inflate my meter DPS, but I don't think that's really the case. I guess to some degree it is, but I feel like the DPS calculation should be done over the course of, let's say, 15 seconds or 10 seconds. I don't think it should be calculated from the standpoint of one clip. So if you're talking about one specific clip and burst damage potential, you're right, it does inflate it quite a bit. But from my point of view, in a sustained damage fight where almost every single PvP encounter is going to be more than one clip of ammo, it's going to allow me to reload much faster than them, and while they are reloading their gun, I'm doing damage yet again, so it's going to allow me to really control the pacing of the fight. So looking at the 3 Firecrest pieces, I have a 268 Firecrest Micro Shuttle Pack. I got quite lucky with this roll. It has critical hit damage. Again, prioritizing firearms and a large, critical hit damage chunk of the build is going to make me much more effective in PvP, especially when I land things like headshots. It has first aid ally heal, would much prefer self heal, but at the same time that's fine. And the minor attribute is bleed resistance. That would be much better served as something like shock and things like that, because with the toughness that you have, I'm not a super tank build. I'm plenty tanky to survive whatever I need to survive. 400,000 toughness is more than enough, but at the same time, it's not a safe amount of toughness in the sense that you can tank a shock turret, with 600, 700,000 toughness, I've even heard, which is really impressive, and you're going to be totally all set. I mean, it would really take a lot of people focusing you at the same time to bring you down from that amount of toughness. But with this amount, you do have to be positionally aware. You do have to be really quick on the sticks. Your fingers have to be nice and loose, and you have to be able to roll out of things like that. So shock resistance specifically would help you deal with players that have a shock turret. Going down, I have the 3-piece bonus checked off, as you can see here. I don't really care about the incendiary bullets. I don't use them that often. Especially with the nerf after the 1.3 patch. They're not as effective unless you have a reclaimer who's just, pumping them out all the time to your entire squad. Individualistically, though, I don't feel like there's something that's going to change the pacing of a fight too much. You can use them in tight scenarios, where you want that extra CC, but it's not going to be like a total game changer like explosive bullets used to be. So I have a prototype stamina mod with some extra skill power. That's what's allowing me to get up to 15,000. That's still extremely low. I should probably have much more like 21, 22 in order to be effective with the build, but at the same time I'm usually rolling in a squad, and that allows me to do a little bit more mixing and matching with talents and skills. So specifically with the backpack as well, the critical hit damage right there could be skill power, and in fact might be much better served if it were skill power. I can go re-roll that perhaps. I'm not really sure if I'm going to. I like the critical hit damage. but at the same time, you know, having an extra 7,000 skill power in your backpack is going to make your heal much more potent and increase your overall effectiveness in a PvP scenario, because you're going to be burst healing for much more, you're going to be over healing for much more, and your heal is going to come back quicker. So overall, skill power might be a better thing to have, but if you're really focused on this high DPS, you know, getting back to a melt run and gun style gameplay, you're going to want the critical hit damage. So moving on to my mask. On this mask, I don't actually have skill power. Again, you can run skill power. You'd sacrifice a bit of damage. As you can see, my primary DPS is quite high, so I could use to sacrifice a little bit in order to reroll for skill power on both my mask and my backpack. But at the same time, you know, I'm really trying to showcase a PvP gun style run and gun build, you know, kind of similar to what we had before the nerfs to SMGs. So I don't have skill power on either my mask or my backpack. At some point in the future, I may do a build oriented around that, a much more hybrid style build. But this one is specifically geared towards melting players with your assault rifle or your SMG or whatever primary gun you're using. It has scavenging. That could much better be served as some other attribute, but it doesn't really matter. Ballistic shield health, again, you want as much first aid self-heal as you can possibly get. It's the most valuable attribute in PvP. Moving down, I have a stamina mod with skill power. Again, this is helping me achieve, you know, the 15,000, which is not useless. If I were down at about 10,000, this build would be much less effective because I would have almost no survivability outside of medkits. But at the same time, it's not very high still. 15 is quite low. I know some people that have 30, 40,000 easily without even prioritizing electronics. You know, they have 1,200 electronics, my buddy does, and he has well over 30,000 skill power. So there are ways that I could drastically increase that, and I probably will do so in the future. But for right now, it's all about primary weapon DPS. So then going down to my holster, a great roll, 268, 3-stat holster. The firearms and the electronics could be higher, but the stamina is quite nice. Has armor as a major attribute, which is allowing me to hit the armor cap, 75% mitigation, without really, you know, putting mods in that have, you know, stamina mods with armor on them. It's freeing me up to get critical hit chance and skill power with my mods, which are more effective. Because you get a smaller chunk of armor proportionally than you do from, you know, using stamina mods that have critical hit chance or skill power. So rolling armor is only good if you have not already achieved the cap, but with the gear score that we have available to us right now with the patch, you can achieve the armor cap with only gear rolling armor as major attributes. You do not need the mods with armor to achieve that. With 268 gear, you can easily achieve armor cap without putting any mods in that have that. So that's my 3 Firecrest pieces. Now looking at my gloves, I've carried these over from my Alpha Tank build. These are double stack gloves. It has been announced that this is an unintended mechanic. These are not supposed to be dropping this way. So as a matter of fact, this may not be the right thing to run if I were trying to showcase what will be the case for a perfect DPS build later in the future. So you could easily switch over to something else like Firecrest. You would lose a substantial portion of toughness, but at the same time, you would actually probably gain a lot of damage because, as you can see, critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and damage to elites. I could re-roll damage to elites to assault rifle damage, and that's 3 major attributes that are going to increase my damage quite a bit, whereas these Alpha Bridge gloves, all they have is critical hit chance and damage to elites. They're actually sacrificing 2 major attributes right now, such as damage to elites being assault rifle damage, or, you know, critical hit damage of up to 40%, 41%. And then a third one that rolled as a primary stat attribute now, which could have been, you know, assault rifle damage again or critical hit damage. So skill attribute's not very good either, Seeker Mind damage, but I really like the 2-stat aspect of this. It's allowing me to achieve a much higher toughness than I normally would have while still maintaining a super high meter DPS. You could also very easily switch out these gloves for something like the Savage gloves. As you can see, Savage gloves are going to have a huge impact on your overall primary DPS. These also rolled quite well in terms of pairing with my assault rifle. They have 527 assault rifle damage, 37% critical hit damage, and damage to elites. If I re-rolled damage to elites to critical hit chance, that would make these almost a perfect roll. That's a very low stamina roll, and in fact that could roll much higher. So if you have a well-rolled pair of 229 Savage gloves, that could actually be extremely good to pair with this build. You're going to be running Reckless and Savage paired with 3-piece Firecrest in order to get the reload speed, and then all of the bonuses from those 2 high ends with the talents. You know, Reckless being the increased damage while increasing the damage you take, and Savage to increase the critical hit chance to targets out of cover. Most PvP encounters are going to be targets out of cover. So these gloves are also a perfect alternative. Your meter DPS is going to go down a little bit, but at the same time, you're going to have all that extra critical hit chance, which is going to factor in really nicely, and your stamina roll could go up much higher. And in fact, rolling a pair of operator gloves very well might be the best way to do this. Again, it's really up to, you know, user's preference. I prefer to use these right now because I rolled quite well, and I just like that extra bit of toughness and little bit of extra DPS from the main stat firearms. Moving down, I have Reclaimer bracers. This is specifically only because I rolled well. This is not because I think that you should run Reclaimer braces with anything else, like with this particular gear set setup. You can run whatever your best roll is, and specifically, if you were to run two-piece final measure, let's say you switch out these Reclaimer braces for final measure and these Alpha Bridge gloves for final measure. That would provide a much bigger security blanket in terms of combating the tankticians and things like that. You know, sticky bombs would be all but useless against you. It would be a very safe way to play, and would actually be pretty ideal for functioning in a PvP environment. So one way to easily increase the effectiveness of this build is to swap out the gloves and the braces, or whatever other combination of the two items that are not utilizing something like Reckless or Savage and the three-piece Firecrest for two-piece final measure. The option is there. You're running kind of a 3-2-1, an augmented version of the 3-2-1 from before the patch, except this time the 3 is Firecrest, the 2 could be final measure, could be Sentry's Call, could be blind, anything you want to pick in order to increase damage output, and then the 1 is Reckless. So in my case, it's really just a 3-1-1-1 because I haven't really paired these gloves and these braces to be some other gear set. It could be Sentry's Call, easily increasing my overall damage output by, you know, 10% headshot damage, especially paired with Brutal on the gun. That would be very nice. But, you know, there's a wealth of possibilities that you can use in order to increase this build's effectiveness. Again, this is not a min-maxed, super optimized build. It's very effective. I like it a lot. But there's a lot of ways that I can improve this. So if you have a better build, especially functioning in a PvP environment, go ahead and tell me what that is. I would love to hear it. That'd be really helpful. Especially if it's, you know, using some other things to achieve better stats and, you know, more effectiveness in PvP, especially. So thank you in advance. You know, anybody who wants to leave feedback, that's super appreciated. I haven't actually taken a look. The Reclaimer braces, super high main stat stamina roll. I rolled armor as a major attribute. Again, really important to achieve the armor cap. Minor attribute, enemy armor damage. I like that a lot, especially since there are NPCs pretty much all the time when you're fighting in the Dark Zone. And then scavenging's nice as well, 97%. It helps if you do kill a boss here and there. Pulse duration, that's good too, especially if you're going to be pulsing to achieve more damage. You can also pair something like two-piece blind. Pulse duration helps a lot with that, so that would be a really nice pairing. And that's about it. I have a stamina mod with critical hit chance, again, to increase primary weapon DPS as the mod slot in there. So now moving on to my weapon. This is one of the more important things about the build. When looking at meter DPS, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. Okay, so my G36, it came with Focused in the third slot. Now, I took Focused out immediately because Focused, to me, is a lie. It's going to tell you that you're stronger, and your primary DPS on the meter is going to be much higher while it's active. It's going to be compounded by using Reckless, and in the end, you're going to think, wow, you know, I have 350,000 meter DPS. But in reality, you're going to have to take off a very large chunk of that in pretty much every fight you get into, because I don't know of any fights where I don't use skills. I am always pulsing at the beginning of the fight, which would immediately deactivate Focus. I am also healing at various points throughout the fight and pulsing as soon as it's off cooldown, which means I am very rarely getting the Focus bonus. However, if you look at Competent, I re-rolled my third talent to Competent, so I don't actually have to pay the skill, you know, the main stat requirements to activate it. Weapon damage is increased by 14% for 10 seconds after using a skill. I've basically taken Focus and flipped it on its head, so now my meter is lower than it should be, because during almost the entire fight, I'm going to be achieving an extra 14% weapon damage. So I'm going to demonstrate this for you real quick. You don't need to do this, but I am running for abilities Booster Shot. Now, if you're in a squad, and when I'm running with 4 other players, especially my my friend Hoof, he runs Booster Shot, and it's a much more powerful Booster Shot and a much bigger heal because he has the Vigorous chest piece and much more skill power. So I will switch this to my Overdose if I am running with him specifically. But if I'm not, just watch what happens when I pop Booster Shot by itself. As I pop Booster Shot, I get the bonus damage, I get the Competent active, and my meter DPS goes up to 407,000 for 10 seconds. That's huge. Okay, this is going to allow me to melt tanks like it's nothing. Now, as you can see, it just dropped back down. Now, this is not a permanent bonus. You're going to have to time this, so as soon as you pop Booster Shot, you want to make sure you have a full magazine ready to go, and you can just start unloading. Now, another thing, a very good synergy in this build, is the fact that you have the increased reload speed. Now, while that may seem inflationary to some people, the increased reload speed is actually going to allow you, instead of 1 magazine, while you have booster shot active and you're competent procced, so you're going to be at 407,000, it's going to allow you to unload 2 magazines during that time frame instead of just 1, because you're cutting down on your reload time significantly. This allows you to output so much more damage while you have your bonuses active. Overall, I think it's a really amazing build that has a lot of potential. Looking at my other talents, Brutal now takes the cake away from Deadly far and away, because it's not, hinging on you landing a critical strike. Now, while if I had Deadly instead of Sustained, this would actually be just a phenomenal gun which would shred absolutely anyone. But I don't. Unfortunately, I have Sustained, and I can't re-roll that because I took off Focused. But Brutal itself does not rely on critical strikes, so anytime you hit a headshot, you're getting that bonus, and it's much more effective with assault rifles especially. So that's one thing where I would make a note. If you have the choice between Deadly and Brutal, always choose Brutal if you're using an assault rifle and you're going for much more steady, reliable DPS. Okay? So that's my gun. I've already talked about my skills. I run Pulse with the damage modifier on it. That just helps me do even more burst damage. When I'm popping Pulse, I get the competent procced for 10 seconds, which then allows me to do more damage on top of the increased critical strike chance and the increased critical strike damage. It makes for very fast melting of players when paired correctly. And then for talents, I run pretty much the same thing in all of my builds now. I run Triage for 15%, cooldown reduction for all my teammates. Very important if you're in a squad to run that. I run Critical Save. Now this is actually very critical to the build itself, because you're going to need to be popping these medkits and getting the damage resistance when you're lower. The fact that you're taking increased damage from Reckless most of the time won't make a difference, but when you do actually get low and you manage to pop a medkit at the proper time and get the increased mitigation, it's going to be really super effective for you, because the 40% damage resistance is going to totally counteract the Reckless chest piece and then some, and it's going to allow you to be much more tanky while still dealing all that increased damage. Tech support, because I'm running booster shot and the pulse. Now, this does work on all skills properly now. It didn't up until patch 1.3, but they fixed it. So now if you activate your booster shot talent and you're getting that increased damage and you kill a target during that heightened effective DPS stage of the skill, you will increase the duration. So this is going to allow you to increase the effectiveness and duration of all of your bonuses very, very well. Then we're going to have On the Move. Again, pretty much the same set of talents that I'm running for most builds now, especially On the Move during PvP, because you're always going to be moving around other players. The metagame is still run and gun, just it's shifted slightly away from SMGs and crit builds. So killing a target while moving, you're going to get that extra mitigation. It's going to help counteract Reckless and make you even more tanky. So in the end, I think it's a really good pairing. Overall, I love the build a lot. I'm going to throw it to some gameplay now. I don't have an entire unedited manhunt for you because, well, I mean, it was a really boring manhunt for large portions of it. That people were running away, we were getting chased, we were doing the chasing. Sometimes we sat for 3 minutes straight and no one would come near us. But I am going to show you a chunk of the PvP and show you how the build performs when fighting other players. Okay, so here we are. The build is going to function well. I'm paired with my buddy, so he has booster shot and I have overdose. And as you can see, I start shooting and I absolutely melt the player. Well over 8,000 critical strike headshots. And I just take him down in about little over half a magazine. Now, the reason you see me kind of griefing him and shooting him a little bit there, it's a little bit disrespectful, I'm sorry for that, but that is because this group in particular that we're fighting right now, they went through the entire DZ6 area and killed just the bosses, okay? So they went through and they sniped the boss at Midtown Music, at the Q building, at the pit, and over in the contaminated zone, and just killed the boss. They left all the other NPCs up, and it's a really annoying, frustrating thing when that happens. So I don't respect them. I don't care about their feelings at all. This is the one type of squad in the division where we will grief them. We would camp them outside the checkpoint or something like that, because what they did is they made it very inconvenient for the rest of the players or any squad that comes after them. They have to clear all this trash without ever getting a reward, and I'm frustrated by that, and I don't like that very much. Also, a few of them are actually running Tanktician builds, so this is a good demonstration that even without the extra exotic damage resilience of two-piece final measure, we're capable of surviving in a fight with them, a head-to-head fight with them, where they are landing their sticky bombs, they are landing chain reaction. The booster shot damage mitigation does help with that quite a bit. Popping a signature whenever you need one is going to help quite a bit. And overall, I have over 100,000 in my base health pool. I didn't actually show that, but I do have just over 100,000 base health and max mitigation, so that I'm at the 400,000 toughness. It's not a squishy build by any means. It's not a super tank either, but it has enough to sustain yourself in these fights. And one thing to note is that with the Fire Crest and with the increased reload speed, you're going to start outputting damage much faster than a Tactician can heal it. So finally we have an actual direct counter, because they're not going to have time to keep popping these heals, every 15-20 seconds, because, you're severely cutting down on their health pool much faster because you're reloading quicker. So as you can see there, I do significant damage even from farther away. One of the benefits to using an assault rifle over an SMG is the increased optimal range. Fights can take place now at a much farther distance without sacrificing too much of your damage. So things like two-piece Predator's Mark aren't as necessary in my mind, because they used to increase the SMG to being effective at farther ranges. As you can see, we are controlling the pace of this fight. My buddy just got dropped there. That's because he was in a bad spot and he got hit by a sticky bomb. I don't know if it procced chain reaction or not, but either way, he did go down. But most of the fight right now, we're controlling the pacing. As you can see, that player just got dropped, because we're dealing so much more damage than they're used to dealing with, than they're used to receiving, because we have this increased reload speed. We have Reckless giving us a boosted damage for the entire fight. We have Competent, at least I do, that's proccing for almost the entire duration of the fight. Booster Shot as well. So all these different, percentage weapon damage increases that are proccing a lot of the time. And we're dealing so much more damage than they're used to that they're actually just, stuck going back behind cover and things and healing constantly. As you can see, they're low most of the time. They have to back off constantly to heal because we're doing more damage than they're used to taking, and they can't compete with that. Now, I'm sure that the metagame will shift as time goes on and as players get stronger, but right now, this seems to be a dominant PvP build, especially when 2 or 3 of your squad are running it, because you can just output so much damage. We don't have good focus fire. Actually, the problem is we don't communicate that well, at least in this video, and we're not focusing targets. If we were, we would melt them before they had even a chance to heal. They wouldn't even be able to hit their primary heal or their medkit in time, and maybe they would actually be able to press the button, but there's a delay, and that's something you need to take advantage of, especially with these high damage builds. So if they were to hit their primary heal skill, the puff of green would come out, and there's actually a delay before that zooms back in and gives them the health to their health pool. So if you can take advantage of that and melt them before they actually get that heal effect, and you can deal enough damage that they're too slow to react, then you're going to find that you shred players much more easily. The problem with a Tactician specifically is that they do so much when that heal does proc that, they go right back up to full health, and it's really, it's frustrating sometimes. But with damage this high that like we have in this build specifically and in this video, you're going to be able to kill them before that happens. I'm not sure exactly what the toughness of these players is, but I know at least 2 of them were running a Tactician build. We were able to shred them, before they could do anything about it. It's a really fun PvP build, and it's actually getting us back into the Dark Zone. I thought the PvP metagame had become kind of stagnant in the past, right after the patch, but now that people are really ironing out these great PvP builds, it's becoming much more fun and much more effective. So that's probably going to be it. I'm going to wrap up the gameplay here. We did go on to survive this manhunt quite easily. They couldn't really stop us, or I did. One of my squad mates did die. That's unfortunate. But in the end, a really effective PvP, build and squad composition. So I hope that helped. And I'll be trying to do much more, many more PvP builds, a lot more PvP content. I'll try to keep good quality, good content coming. To do justice to my subscribers. Thank you to anyone who moved over from the old channel with us. It means a lot. You guys are making it possible for us to keep going. We're making great progress. The community is growing at a fantastic rate. And if you have any opinions about this build, if you have something else that you think is effective, if you want to just show off your stats because they're better than mine, go ahead and post a comment down in the description. I love hearing feedback, whether it's positive or negative. It helps me grow as a Division player. It helps me improve, what I'm doing. It helps me as a content creator here on YouTube to produce better stuff. Another thing is that I want to give a shout out to all of my subs who I've actually recently played games with. We've done some heroic underground missions. We've done some incursions, things like that. It's an honor playing with you guys. I do my best at all times to play with subscribers. Whenever I can, anytime I get a good drop of gear or something like that, it's the least I can do to give back to the community that's already giving so much to me and being so supportive. So go ahead and add my gamertag. My gamertag is actually this time going to be down in the description. So anyone that wants to add me, it's gotten to the point where there's a lot of people that are, saying, oh, here's my gamertag. will you add me and play? I would love to, but I'm actually getting a little bit pressed for time now in terms of doing that, and I can't really find, and I forget people, and I'm sorry about that, but I'll try to always remember. But I'm going to put my gamer tag down there. If you want to play, if you're a subscriber, go ahead and add me and send me a message whenever you see me online. You know, there's going to be more than I can actually incorporate in, and oftentimes I'll have to, you know, make a line and do one game at a time with people, but I would love to do that. It's really flattering to me to play with supporters, and it's something I appreciate a lot. The fact that you guys are even here watching what I produce, you know, you like the content, super flattering. So I'm rambling on. I'm going to cut it short there. A big thank you again to everyone that made the channel move with us. If you like the video, if you think it's good content, please, please, please drop a like and a comment especially. Just grow the discussion. That's what I care about the most, is growing the metagame discussion, the feedback, and everybody gets, you know, a good experience out of the channel, you know, not just from me talking, but from other members, you know, answering questions, posing questions in the comments, and things like that. So thank you. Thanks again to all my subscribers. It means a lot. As always, have a nice day.